Carrie Harrison with you, and this is but one of many of our little coffee with Carrie sort of fellowship chats, Zoom confabulations, where we get together and talk about stuff that matters to you. What is it like in your hospital? I know you're have to be a little careful as to talking about where you work and all the rest of it, but what's the activity like right now?
Well, so right now I'm in the Tulsa area in Oklahoma. I think that what we've experienced is kind of interesting compared to what the news is saying about Seattle, Los Angeles, New York. Us being in a flyover state, we're very blessed that we've had, I would say, a good amount of time lag from what's being seen in our hospital census-wise versus what New York and Seattle and Los Angeles have been feeling and experiencing.
We're talking to Dr. Jeremy Wang. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Picked a young doctor on purpose, picked the belly button of the country on purpose, just to be able to offer a different perspective from the New York, LA, the usual sort of big major markets where it's just completely nuts. He's in, an average sized place with dealing with an average type scenario. So, Dr. Wang, what about hydroxychloroquine, this malaria drug that is being touted half correctly, maybe half incorrectly by the White House as the thing to get?
Oh, God. So if you want to look at the science, I want to pretty confidently say that there's very little to no science behind hydroxychloroquine plus minus azithromycin. So the problem with it is that azithromycin is an antibiotic, and COVID is a virus, so that doesn't really work.
Let's jump in there, because what we're talking about, like when you have a virus does not react to antibiotics. Antibiotics are for bacterial infections.
That's
so
correct.
You can't treat a virus with an antibiotic. That's why you're saying it's ineffective.
Yeah, that is very, very correct. Thank you for clarifying that. I forget that.
That people down here were like, but wait a minute, but I could have a Z-Pack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, you can, ma'am. And then you won't poop for a week.
Right. It's a Z-Pack. Either you won't poop for a week or you're going to have some diarrhea. But, but so as for Paraquin, you said that it's an anti-malarial drug, and that's exactly what it is. It's for malaria. And I'm trying to think of what else it can be used for. Lupus, I think. Yeah, Plaquenil. Sorry, Plaquenil is the drug. Yeah, so I mean, if you have malaria or lupus, you might consider getting those medications. But I mean, this is a heavy-hitting drug that can cause many different side effects. One of them including QT prolongation, which is fucking up the rhythm of your heart, so to speak. And so there have been some studies that showed that the morbidity and mortality rates of those being treated with Plaquenil versus no treatment or supportive treatment for those infected with COVID, the mortality and morbidity is either equal to those, the control group, or it's even higher. And some trials have even stopped because it's unethical to continue on with this treatment with Plaquenil. There's not good science behind it. I think a lot of it is out there in the general zeitgeist because we have an idiot president who's trying to say medical stuff that is not really founded on anything. I mean, if you really want to go by his recommendations, go in a tanning bed and inject yourself with Clorox. I mean, these are all just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous things. And
it's interesting you say that, because there's a third of this nation that sees, Jesus Christ with orange hair, and that they want to believe, I suppose, absolutely everything he says. And it is unusually the first time in all of American history that the president of the United States gives whole cloth, complete, like bald-faced, should we say, terminological inexactitudes, prevarications, things like that. And as a medical professional and your colleagues all around the world, do any of them subscribe to injecting Mr. Clean, having enemas with Drano, etc.? Lawn
No.
care products.
My God, no, please no. I don't know a single um, medical professional who subscribes to any of that. And I mean, especially what our idiot president has said lately about Clorox, or about disinfectant, bleach, and what was it called? Tremendous lights. Oh my gosh,
Tremendous lights.
I think that's
Like
what he said,
ET.
that you could hit the virus with tremendous lights. I mean, he says all this from some sort of, someone in the background has been whispering about UV lights disinfecting surfaces, which it does, but that doesn't mean that if we irradiate the human body with UV lights, we're going to be virus free. If we do it
Unless you kill the body, then the virus will die along with the host. It is
you have
kind of
something
permanent.
there. Kill the body, kill the virus, right? So there's that. Please, no one inject yourselves with anything for the virus. Like, please don't. That just makes me cringe. I mean, I'm working right now in Oklahoma, which is I think the reddest of all states, like deep red. And thank goodness I've only encountered a few cases where people have come in and said, okay, I'm here for the COVID cure. And I asked them, what do you mean? And they say, oh, that drug that, Trump has been talking about. And I have to tell them, well, no, there is no such thing. And their minds are blown when a doctor tells them that there is no such thing as a COVID cure. And their minds are blown again when I tell them that if we do a COVID test right now, which thankfully we have a lot more of, whereas a month ago we were a lot more judicious with our COVID tests. They're like blown away that it's not like a finger prick and immediately you find out. No, it's a very invasive nose swab, and you get the test results 12 to 48 hours later, depending on priority. Yeah.
Dr. Wang, one of the reasons that I picked you again, you're in the reddest of the red states. You're young, super red. You're young and you have a no holds barred way of communicating with patients, which I think is tremendous. Speaking like the president right now, it's tremendous.
I was about to say.
I just want to say.
Oh boy.
So I'm just curious, because you're going to be around a lot of people who are receiving all these different pieces of information, come to you with, what medically will be, clinical madness. If actually you'd be sued and shot if you actually did any of these things that they want, because they're hearing this information. Do you know where they're getting this? Like, they're getting this information to inject ammoniac trisulfate diethylchloroquine into their big toe while tap dancing and doing upside down somersaults while gargling with, Clorox.
Right. And of course, like Himalayan singing and yeah.
Is this their entire universe of information? Like, are they telling you where they're getting this from specifically, and why there is no countervailing information from any other place? Like, do they have just one pipeline of information? I'm just wondering if they reveal that to you.
They do. And well, I mean, it's usually very vague because I do want to know. And if, I'm in the emergency department working a 12-hour shift, honestly, some things at the beginning of my shift and to the end of my shift could have changed drastically. So who knows? And so I do ask them, and they usually say, the president said on the news today. blah 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 blah. So I mean, like it's kind of terrifying when their source of news and information is literally directly from his mouth, like directly. So there's no fact checking, there's no source, but you do see this very public figure saying these ridiculous things, and it sounds good, and you kind of check out, your brain kind of checks out because that's all you need to know, and you race over to the emergency department for the cure. Um, if people
So
actually,
let me ask you this, because this would be the next question. If you applied the treatment that the President of the United States, e pluribus unum, is recommending on we, his clientele, 350 million Americans, if you did that same medical treatment on the president himself, how long would he live after administering that treatment?
well, so right now I think he might be immune to UV lights the way he tans. So we're going to ignore that. But I think if you inject yourself with bleach, you'll be gone pretty fucking fast. Um, I'm usually not one for unethical clinical trials, but Mr. President, if you want to try this, please do.
Like a
It's
live demonstration on the
like a
White
live
House lawn.
demonstration.
We're
I'm very
not recommending this, by the way.
no. But I mean, was that too incendiary?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I remember I got some heat some years ago during the Bush Cheney administration. You might have been a zygote back then. And, Dick Cheney famously had had his third or fourth or 18th pacemaker or whatever. And I
Right.
recommended that the entire country turn on their microwave ovens and point them east toward DC. Well,
Oh my gosh. Well, in all
naughty
seriousness,
humor. That was just,
that was
what
just
are we,
naughty humor.
sophomoric. Yes, naughty.
Um, if you try to inject yourself with with bleach, you will if you hit the vein correctly, you will die very quickly. It's a very toxic chemical. If you don't hit the vein correctly, it will corrode your skin and you'll have a very, very, very nasty chemical burn. Either way, you'll be in so much pain that you'll be wondering, is the human body telling me that I done fucked up? The answer, yes, you done fucked up. Like it's not healthy. It's not good.
It's ridiculous that we even have this conversation. I mean, honestly,
It
it's
is.
so off the radar of, do we really, really, really need to be saying no? Don't take Drano, mix it with water, and gargle with it. Don't do that. Don't take Roundup from your lawn garage, and give yourself an enema. I mean, that we have to actually say, but we actually have to say this. And this is
It's
why here on our CoronaLerts, I want a doctor to say what happens when you do this, because people otherwise will think, well, if the president said it, it must be right. But he's not doing these same things. So let's change the topic right now, unless this comes up again, and it probably will over and over again, because it is kind of interesting for sure.
it
What are
is.
you doing as self-care to avoid getting the coronavirus?
Self-care. As for like what I'm doing in the hospital or me as a non-healthcare worker civilian?
I would say, well, the hospital version, we know that kind of level of prophylaxis is administrative. But as a regular dude, after your 12-hour shift, when you get 3 hours, well, 14 minutes of sleep before you go back
Right.
to work, you know, that's the part that the rest of us participate in.
Um, when I'm not at work, I'm at home. Uh, Luckily, I do not have a family. Well, I say that luckily, as in, luckily, I don't have anyone to expose at home. I don't have like an elderly family member that I'm worried about getting sick. But I mean, when I get into the car, I take off my PPE. I don't touch my face. And then I put on like a surgical mask, get into the elevator, come back home into my apartment, take off my clothes, immediately take the longest, nicest shower ever, and sleep, rinse, repeat. So I'm kind of a boring person, but as for the past couple of days, because I have had a couple of days off, which is a miracle for me, I have gone to Trader Joe's and Reese's and the liquor store, and that was interesting. So I don't know about I hear that California is being super strict about stuff like this, and I hope they are. But I know that like Trader Joe's, I saw a surprising number of people not wearing masks, which kind of terrifies me. I know that Oklahoma, being red of red, is very much don't trample on my freedoms, my body, my rights. Don't tell me to wear a mask. Wear a fucking mask, please. Ask me if you had asked me this like 6 to 8 weeks ago, I would have said no. Wearing a mask is kind of futile because wearing it in public, you're not going to protect yourself from anyone else who has COVID. And that's true. Wearing a mask, like a regular surgical mask or a cloth mask, is not protecting yourself from other people. It's actually protecting other people from you. So, and it doesn't work unless everyone does it. So I think that for you to protect yourself, you have to think of it in a more global us versus individual perspective. You're trying to protect everyone from each other. So wear a mask. Yes.
Dr. Wang, it's interesting you say that because in California, you were mandated. Here in Los Angeles, you have to wear it.
You have to.
I've never seen anyone get a ticket for not wearing it, though I have seen people get a ticket for jaywalking. But that's another conversation. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But, you know, generally we're compliant because I think people get it, that they don't want to get it or give it. Now, there's the famous story of Typhoid Mary, and this goes back well over 100 years ago, where a woman who lived on the top of a hill, whose name was Mary, and people who lived at the bottom of the hill used the lake, swam in it, drank water out of it, et cetera, and they all ended up with typhus, and they couldn't figure out where was it coming from. There was no dead animal in the lake. Everything looked fine. Well, Mary would do her number 2, and it would rain and flow down and wash into the lake. And of course, it blossomed and everybody basically croaked. And that was the famous case of Typhoid Mary. So if you're transmissible, even if you don't have any symptoms whatsoever, and you're not wearing your mask, you can actually give it to someone else. And that's what Dr. Wang is saying. I'll give you an example. A great journalist, Greg Palast, who we know from the BBC and Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, all these places, has a new book coming out. And we were doing a live stream. And he has one lung because he grew up in Los Angeles next to a coal-fired power plant. So he's got very, very, very sensitive lung, let's put it that way. And we were wearing masks, not that he's going to give it to me, but the other way around. If I gave it to him, well, you know, don't know what would happen. So part of my, I think, responsibility as a citizen, as a co-American, doesn't matter red, blue, pink, purple, whatever, but as a co-American, is to wear the mask so that I don't ruin other Americans until such time as that gets determined medically, which is why we have you on, Dr. Wang, gets determined medically that I can not wear the mask. And I think that's reasonable.
I think so too. And I mean, small details on wearing a mask, I think that everyone needs to consider, because unlike us and us doctors in the hospital, I don't think regular Americans are used to wearing masks for extended periods of time. Wear them responsibly. And what I mean is, please don't touch your face when you wear a mask. One of the worst things you could do is touch things at the grocery store, think that you're immune and above it all because you're wearing gloves. Also, you don't have to wear gloves. We might circle back to that. But don't touch things thinking that you're wearing a mask and you're protected from everything, and then you keep on adjusting your mask on your face. That is cross contamination right there. I see that happen just way too often. So I think if you're going to be wearing a mask, wear a comfortable fitting mask that's not going to slip on your face. Make sure that it's washed. If it's a cloth mask, wash it responsibly. I would say, like, as you do your regular clothes, don't keep on touching it on your face. When you put it on and you take it off. So I have a mask here.
And the
So
metal part goes on the top, right?
the metal part goes on the top. If you have a like a real surgical mask, the color is on the outside, and you want to pinch it around your nose and pull it under your chin. So that, I mean, that I could wear indefinitely, and my glasses aren't fogging up really, and there's you see that when I inhale, there's like suction off through the front part. The last thing you want to be doing at the grocery store is touching everything and then touching your mask and adjusting it. And some people do the silly thing of like having it here for, I don't know,
Right.
have you been seeing that? Because I've been seeing
Yeah,
a
I've
lot.
been seeing it. It's
Yeah.
like, but it's the mouth. No,
Oh
it's not the
yeah.
mouth.
No, no. Cover your nose, your mouth, your chin. And when you take it off, if you want to be really technical about it, you don't manhandle the outside part. You only touch the parts around your ear, and so you're not getting your hands dirty. And in all of this, please wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands before you put the mask on. Wash your hands while you're handling things, and then after you take the mask off, wash your hands again. It doesn't have to be with antibiotic or antibacterial hand sanitizer. Just wash your hands with soap and water as many times as conveniently possible. Be very conscientious of where you're touching, what you're touching. If you're listening right now, I dare you not to touch your face, because
As you
it's
as you pull your hair back.
right. No, I mean,
You're
but
at
yeah,
home, safe at home, sequestered,
exactly. I
locked
am safe
down
at
where you
home.
belong.
I feel dirty doing this, but I mean, like, I can touch my face. Ugh. Now I want to wash
Well,
everything.
so back to the gloves, because you
Yes.
mentioned that.
Um,
Touching products, the grocery gloves, people are wearing gloves and they think that if I wear gloves, I'm good. But is it true? For instance, let's say I was wearing a glove and I picked up this phone. The glove then would have made contact with that phone if that phone were infected. And then I take the glove and I pat my face.
oh yeah,
Is that a problem?
that is such a problem. Such a problem. I mean, I think it might even be worse than when people aren't wearing gloves, because when people wear gloves, they don't think about washing their hands. They don't think about using hand sanitizer, because you'd be silly doing that on top of your gloves. So you go on for extended periods of time thinking that your hands are clean, literally clean. They might be clean, but what your gloves are doing, your dirty gloves are doing, is just touching everything and spreading these germs everywhere, whether it be bacteria or viruses. So I don't think wearing gloves in public is necessary. Um, I don't encourage it, because I think it gives a false sense of cleanliness and immunity. I think that if anything, just keep on washing your damn hands. I can't say that enough.
Dr. Wang, because you're young, and again, you're picked because you're in the reddest of the red states. You're in Oklahoma. You're also young, so you shoot from the hip, which is great. I'm going to tell you a little story, and you tell me if what you think of this. So I know a guy here in Los Angeles who gets on one of these adult apps on the smartphone
Uh-huh.
and has been meeting other live humans
Uh-huh.
and interfresticating with them. And he explains to me, oh, well, sure, we have sex and do all of this stuff, but I washed my hands first. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's bodily contact minus the hands. He thinks if he just washes his hands, it's fine. But osculating or kissing, tongue on flesh, deep throating, mouth to genital contact, especially if the
Fellatio, analingus.
yeah, people touch themselves all over. And I suspect too that if you're doing that with them and they're doing it with you, you're probably not the first.
No. Yeah, hooking up, whether for men who have sex with men or men who have sex with women who have sex with et cetera, any permutation, hooking up with strangers is around this time is not really socially responsible. It doesn't matter how many times you wash your hands. If you're kissing each other, you're exchanging saliva, you're exchanging spit and aerosolizing particles into each other's faces. That's as direct of transmission of an airborne virus as you can get, is direct kissing and heavy breathing into each other's faces. So you are not at all immune even if you wear like full body condom, if you're still breathing the same air as the other person is in a small enclosed space, you're putting yourself and the other person into danger.
So that's a more opens up a more granular question, which is fluid contact. So we know that saliva would carry it because the virus lives in the throat for some days and ends up, worst case scenario, going down to the lungs. What about in semen?
I don't think that there have been any studies on semen so far. I think the only other bodily fluid that it's been known to be in is feces, because it does shed through the digestive tract a little bit. But even then, I'm not entirely sure if it's transmittable at all by poop.
Well, let's hope that people aren't routing around in that bit of business to find out. But then again, if they're coming in with, shooting up Clorox and Drano, nothing is off the table, it turns out.
Nothing is off the table, yeah. But I mean, it's mostly just secretions being nasal, oral secretions, anything coming from the lungs, anything through your face holes is off limits, like body fluid wise. So I mean, thank goodness it's not in like anything else, because that's enough to think about. But yeah, as for like semen, poop, pee, what else is there? Blood, sweat. I'm not entirely sure about those, but those are definitely less contagious routes than just having something aerosolized through your mouth, which is a terrifying thing to think about when you're hooking up with someone. If you just watch porn and imagine like green clouds of gas coming from their mouths every time they inhale and exhale, like that's if you want to like kind of imagine how contagious things can be in a small enclosed environment. Stop hooking up.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I have ever watched porn.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure.
This has been a tremendous,
yes,
tremendous conversation. And I want to thank you, Dr. Jeremy Wang, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the middle of the reddest part, and young to boot. We wanted to get this perspective, and I guess the take home is plug your nose hole, plug your face holes, because that's
cover your face holes, wash your hands, and think about other people instead of just yourself.
Okay. Well, those are great take-home lessons. I appreciate your time. We'll circle back with you again down the road and get to more updates as they become known. Thanks again for joining us, Dr. Wang.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.